You're live.
Okay. Brenda, we're live. Go ahead.
And I want to welcome everyone to the City of Albany Commission on Human Rights special meeting, October 7th, 2020, to review the equity report. This is a rescheduled meeting. We're going to do roll call. My name is Brenda Robinson. I'm chair.
Judith as a commissioner. Oh,
Valerie Alexander Mosley, Commissioner.
Aaron Moore, Commissioner.
Angelica Kang, Chief Diversity Officer.
Laura Goffel from City of Albany Corp Counsel's Office.
Anybody else? Okay. So we're going to move forward with this special meeting. For some folks who wasn't aware, the equity report related to the equity agenda was submitted on September 21st. Upon that submission, the Commissioner of Human Rights and I have an opportunity to review the report, make any edits or any recommendations, and hence our special meeting now. It is very important in regards to the equity agenda for the Commission on Human Rights to have input on this report. And as noted in the equity agenda, it is a partnership between administrative services and the Commission on Human Rights. And having that equity lens is very important when we look at this report and look at equity across the city of Albany. So what we would do here is, just to make this go a little bit smoother, in reviewing this equity report, we're gonna go page by page, give the commissioners an opportunity if they have any comments, edits, or concerns regarding that page. And I think that'll make the flow a bit easier. So commissioners, I hope you have your report, the equity report in front of you, and I hope you've had time to review it, and we'll just go through page by page so that we can get your input and move on from there. Okay, so what I will do, I'm pulling up the agenda as well. I mean, the equity report as well. Let's see here. Now, this report went out in September, and the Commission on Human Rights received it on the 15th of September, hence the reasons why we did not have an opportunity or enough time to actually review the report. And I don't know if folks in the community has had an opportunity to look at the equity agenda report, but we're going to move on with this review. So commissioners, we're going to start with page 4, which is actually the introduction and the methodology. And I'm going to ask folks to take a good look at the page, page 4. And if you already have some edits or some comments, please speak up. And for those of you who may not have it in front of you, we have the introduction. And again, we have... Oh, go ahead, Judith.
I just have a question about in the methodology section. The way it talks, it's pretty, it's a little vague to me on what the methodology was. So it doesn't give specifics. You know, it says
I
that it
agree.
requested data from relevant city departments and generated this report as a means of collecting and assessing data necessary to measure progress towards achieving equity.
Right.
But if there are benchmarks, and my comments are more general than specific to this, because I think that I'm not sure that departments had the time or took the time to set benchmarks on what changes they were going to take in their process of doing business to achieve equity. So you can, and that basically says that to me, because I don't see a specific methodology here for them to say, this is how it is, like paving streets. We've got 400 streets that need to be paved.
I got you. So we're gonna get to the paving of the streets piece.
Yeah,
and
yes, but
I'm
I'm
looking at
just
all
using that
the-
as an example, but how
Right,
do you get the
right.
equity around the
Right.
city?
Right,
given
so,
that?
so
And it's, the
Judith,
numbers don't do it to me.
right, so Judith, for me, for this particular equity report, the methodology as I saw it was how we are going to look at this report and review this actual report and the method that we're going to use. So that particular piece is what I was looking at in regards to this report. So we have this report, we need to know how we're going to look at it and what we're going to receive. And I agree with you, I do feel that it's vague. So one of the things I added was, she mentioned this was the first report. This first report is setting a blueprint for subsequent reports. Data will be reviewed, compared from present to past year, wider span of data reviewed as needed, and data is also analyzed. The data requested is not limited to the 4 areas above, because they mentioned the 4 areas. This report will use data on an Excel spreadsheet, pivot, or other charts, because we do have a lot of charts in here. Percentages used will be supported by raw data, which is reflected in some of the charts in the report, but not all the charts. So that was some of the information and input that I thought was needed under the methodology for this report. And I also wanted to see a time frame for as the data to be submitted. So I was thinking about the amount of time that we would need to actually look at this type of report. And I looked at some other reports and some timeframes that other people use. And I was thinking maybe whether it's 45 days prior to the report is due to allow the Commission on Human Rights to do their due diligence and reviewing the information and making recommendations. So those
See,
are,
I think that my thinking is, one, I would like to see a plan from each of these areas on what benchmarks they're setting for the year, and 2, getting quarterly reports from them, so you're not looking at all of this data at the end of the year, but looking at this, if it were coming into administrative services on a quarterly basis, you can then match this up with benchmarks and help people look at this in a way that they'll see what they're doing before a year is over and they didn't meet their benchmarks, but helping the departments to meet their benchmarks as you go along.
So let me just clarify, when I wrote about methodology, I meant like just for this report, this is how we got the data, which is like, I asked. So if we want to, I mean, what you're suggesting, I think would probably go into a recommendation section.
Yeah,
right. We will be,
my recommendation about this whole thing,
right.
because you didn't get,
We will be.
there was
we will be
nothing set
adding-
up,
Right.
but there was nothing set up before about collecting data. Nothing was said in the legislation about it. So
And that's what we're
my
doing now
recommendation
in the
is-
recommendation. So we're going to review this report, and just like you mentioned, the benchmarks, the quarterly reporting, I think those are good ideas and good recommendations. And we're going to add, and I'm writing them down. And at the end, we're going to go through all the recommendations so we can submit that with the report. So I think we're gonna have some good recommendations, and some of the first ones that came out was the quarterly report that you just mentioned, and benchmarks, just like you said, Judith, to help them provide the equity that we're looking for. But I also feel that along with that, we also need specifically what we're looking for and the time frame that we're going to need to get this information. And I also wanted to be clear that, yeah, we do have the 4 equity areas above that is mentioned in this particular report, but we're not limited to those 4 areas. And that needs to be clear also in this report.
Okay.
So we got some good recommendations already, and I'm keeping a running list on these recommendations.
Brenda, I don't want to hijack the conversation in any regard. I just
Okay.
wanted to point out that for tonight, I think these conversations about recommendations are great. I just noticed that there's no quorum. We need 5
Right.
commissioners. Okay.
I know we're not
I just
voting on
wanted to put that
anything,
out.
so we are gonna go
Okay.
ahead and review the report. We're aware that we don't have a quorum and
Sure.
we're not voting, so we're gonna keep it moving with this report.
All right. Sounds
Okay,
good.
thank you. All right, so Judith, I got your info written down about the benchmarks, quarterly reports. Got my comments down already on paper. And awesome. So now we're going to move to page 5. And page 5 is the built environment enhancements, the street conditions rating by ward.
Brenda, I had a comment on that part.
Sure.
So I know that this report is done and it's based on, what the streets look like when they do it. I get that part. But what I don't get is how they make it a plan to do it. I'll give you an example. On 3rd Street, they've done all the streets and the sidewalks on 3rd Street, except for one block that still has potholes in the street, and the sidewalks are uneven, and part of the sidewalks are jacked up. And that's between Thornton and Judson. So when they're making a recommendation to do that type of stuff, I mean, why would they skip over like one block, literally a half a block from the police department coming up on 3rd Street? It makes no sense. It just makes no sense to me.
So your concern would be how are decisions made
Yeah.
in regards to paving, right? And I got that
Yeah.
down.
Paving and sidewalks.
Paving
Because
and
they're
sidewalks.
going on a merit of I don't have the paper right in front of me. I had planned on being home by now, and but I had wrote it down. I get how they're doing it, how they're basing it, but why are they basing it like that? Like on 3rd, you just left that one block from Thornton down to the police station, and I don't understand why when it's just as tore up as the rest of the streets were.
Okay, so I wrote down that far as how decisions made for the paving and the sidewalks, and that is a good point that you made. For me, I added a blurb being that we under street conditions and ratings by ward. One of the things I did find, I was speaking with Councilman Kelly and as well as Councilman Robinson. And now that I'm looking at this, I'm not sure that everyone received the report, the DGS 2019 in-house street paving. And I'm going to ask Angelica if you could please send that report out. The DGS 2019 in-house street paving PDF. If folks did not get that, I just recently obtained that. And being that we're looking at everything through an equity lens, and that's what we're charged to do. I did look at that report, and I do have some comments in regards to that. And that report is a 2019 that DGS in-house street paving report. So for 2019, the top 5 wards in the city of Albany with the poorest roadway conditions, according to the DGS report submitted, were wards 2, 3, 14, 5, 1, and 4 respectively. The in-house paving report showed no paving at all in Ward 5, and Ward 1 had the second lowest amount of paving per square foot. The largest square footage of repair was the 14th ward, which shown to have a high percentage of poor roadway conditions. Ward 15 was the second largest paved per square foot, which has a low percentage of poor condition roads. The lowest amount of paving per square foot were wards 5, 1, 6, 13, 4, 15, 10, 3, 2, 7, 12, respectively. So with that being said, the large amount of paving done for the 14th ward was rightly so, because they had the highest percentage of poor roadway. When we look back at Ward 15 being the second largest, well, that wasn't so great because they had the lowest percentage of poor condition roads. So there's some inequity there in the paving. So I was kind of glad to be able to get that report. And I think that should also be included as we look through an equity lens of street condition ratings, as we're looking at paving, as we look at the sidewalk.
Brenda, just real quickly, I just want to make sure that I'm looking at what you're talking about. It's the City of Albany Pavement Conditions by City Ward 2019 report prepared by CDTC.
No, it says DGS 2019 in-house street paving PDF.
Okay, I don't think I have this, so I will have to request it to send.
Well, it was sent out when you got on here about the council to January 23rd, 2020, when you sent that info out. That was one of the documents with it. And I also have a request later on down the road here, as Judith mentioned, in regards to quarterly reports. It'd be great. One of our recommendations would be to receive those reports as well, because we had already been asking for reports. So in January, when that went out, that'd have been great if that came to us as well. That would give us more opportunity to really look at the reports. So Judith made a good point with that as well. So it says the DGS 2019 in-house street paving report. And if you can't find it, I'm gonna ask when the council members can send it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, I'm digging through my email right now because
Okay. So again, even looking at these reports and being able to analyze them and really take a good look at them with the equity lens, this is a good example of that. You know, when you look at the highest square footage of repair, sometimes you think, oh, well, you know, the folks who really need it are not getting it. Well, the 14th ward actually had shown from the reports I'm given now that they had the highest percentage of poor road condition, and they also had a large square footage of repair, much needed repair. Then on the flip of that, Ward 15 was the second largest paved, but had the lowest percentage. So we got a little flip on both sides when it comes to that. And I think that's one of the reasons why looking at this equity report is very important.
Yeah, and you can see some of that in the, on this chart, even though you've got to go through all the numbers on it on page 6.
Right. So we move
and figure out, all right, what
she's on page 6,
ended up getting
everybody.
paid.
Right. So she's looking at page 6, the roadway condition, 2019 roadway condition by ward.
Yeah. But when it's pulled out, it's a lot easier to look at that. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's also a lot easier to look at when you look at that DGS report too, that PDF.
Yeah.
So.
Again, that's why I think if they set quarterly benchmarks and we look at that before or as it's happening, you can intervene in this process and say, wait a minute, how are you looking at this? This is what you're setting as a benchmark and we're seeing these numbers. How does that compute then? Because sometimes I get that something has to happen that may not look like it's equitable, but there might be another underlying thing there that has to happen. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that's why this got paved or fixed
Yes.
or something before this did. But
And there
that
are
needs,
some, and there are some of those situations where something may have
Yeah.
happened prior to the other, and I've heard some of that.
Yeah.
It's not specifically my area, but I've heard discussions whereas we did X because of this.
yeah,
So
but if,
I think that
if
is
you don't
good.
see it, and it's better to see it on the quarter than it is all of a sudden in
Right.
September, we get all this, it's already happened. So now what are we doing?
Right. Right.
You know, it's like
Right.
you're always, you're not getting ahead of the game.
Right, right. But I think it's good to take a look at it and let them know going forward, okay, this is what we need
Yeah.
to keep an eye on, this is what we need to look at. I don't think we
Mhm.
necessarily, as a group, reviewing this report are going to be ahead of the game, but hopefully can give them enough tools to make sure that the game is equitable as they go forward. So when we look at page 7, we're gonna move to page 7. It's the projected 2020 roadway conditions by ward. It also has, that's a graph. It also has street conditions, ratings, map by ward, and it mentions an appendix. And it also has the request for city streets, and it has the city C-click fix. So any comments? One of the first comments that I have on that recommendation that I'm gonna make for that is more community education on C-click fix. Because I get that a lot. That was also mentioned at a neighborhood meeting as well, where we had the mayor on the call as well. And that was one of the comments too. So I think they can certainly work that out. I don't think that'd be a heavy lift as far as that goes. So if nothing on page 7, when we move to page 8, we still have the C-click fix, the sidewalk street request, and the C-click fix sidewalk street request by ward, which in some ways, I mean, it's nice to have that, but everyone doesn't use that. So I don't know how, it's good to see that some folks use the tool. Some is just showing for me that some folks use it less than others, or maybe they need education on it, or maybe they don't have time to
Well,
utilize it.
I'd like to have, as someone who has used C-click fix,
I
and
use it all
nothing
the time.
happens. And you can report the same one over and over and over again and nothing happens.
The other
And
thing, okay,
I'd like to know with all of these on the C-click fix, how many of them were resolved?
right, yeah.
Because it's
So
this,
for
it was
C-click
sent to
fix,
Rex and all of a sudden it's
right,
being, oh, that's resolved. No, it's not resolved. I'm looking at the hole, I'm looking at the bags of trash, I'm looking at these
Right.
things.
so the C-click fix, we want to see the resolution, and I also would like to see the time frame. So if you say
Yeah.
that this fix,
How long did it take to resolve these
how
things?
long did it take you to resolve that? I think is very important as well. The other thing is the education for the community. So everyone, I don't think everyone's going to be at the same level because everyone is not using that technology. So
I agree, but some people have phones that they can't, they're limited on the data they use and they
yeah,
can't
you
do
can't,
this.
some people just don't have the opportunity to use it due to phones, due to internet, due to a lot of other things. So
Right,
we can take that into consideration as well, and also the education piece.
but those that do come through, I'd like to know how many of them actually got resolved.
Yeah. How
In
many
my
get
experience
resolved?
personally,
Time frame. Mhm.
it's, it's easier to just call up either DGS directly, get somebody you know, like the commissioner online. Or
Well,
you
it's good.
notify the mayor's office and see. how they-
Yeah. Well, it's good that you know the commissioner. Everybody doesn't. And the other thing is, for me, I actually had a pretty good experience, but I'm reporting the same property over and over. So
Yeah, there you go.
so people, but the person is continually doing things, so it's not the same issue. So My experience has been pretty good. So, but I hear a lot of people who have poor experiences with it. So it's good. I would love to see just how well they're actually doing with that.
Yeah, me too.
So then we move to page 9, which has the Parks Equity Report, and it also has street lights. And it has a blurb about the street lights, the purchasing, information regarding that.
I don't have any questions on that.
I didn't
That
have
seems to be going well from my perspective.
Brenda, I have something on the street lights.
Okay.
Okay.
So when I'm talking about the street lights, I have I'm like in high crime areas where they fix the street lights, but the trees hide some of the lights and it's dark on those streets. Did anybody ever mention anything about that? Because I'll use it as an example on 2nd Street. And you already noticed from the meeting that we have with the West Hill, Arbor Hill, how the people are complaining about how dark it is over in that area. Because the trees come over, it hides the lights, and people can't even see sometimes people sitting in front of their house at nighttime. So I don't know if they took that into consideration when they put the lights up, that, you know, maybe talk to the city about cutting the trees back.
Yeah. All right. So I wrote down tree service. That's more of a tree issue because I mean, we've been talking a lot about, and this has been going on for years, about the maintenance of the trees, such as 1st Street, in the 5th Ward. 1st Street, the trees was meeting from one side of the street almost to the other side of the street, and the roots were
Right.
also coming up out of the ground, which made that a hazard for walking. So we have brought that forward quite a few times. So the tree service, I think, is a good point to bring up.
Yeah, I just don't know, like when you're thinking about things like when the city, the Albany Planning Department goes out and they're working on these things, like the other issues that are still created. And I mean, they replaced the lights. I mean, they like 8,900 of them are installed already. But did anybody ever say that, well, you know, we put the lights up, but the trees, something got to be done with the trees if you want to light the areas, especially in the high crime areas. That's why there's so much crime.
And I've seen some tree work being done this summer, but how often and whether they're doing the right trees, the right place, or whatever case may be, I guess that's something that would be good to look at as well, to see how tree service is being done, how is it identified, and how they actually move out far as tree service.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that comment. And page 10 also talks about the street lights, the LEDs. I think they did a great job replacing all those, you know, with the LEDs and the lighting.
Yeah.
I don't have any comments on the lighting. They did work hard on that, I thought. So now we move to page 11, we're talking about the trash receptacles, mandates DGS to access if trash receptacles are evenly distributed throughout the wards, commercial zones. One thing I found, it's a list of all these trash receptacles, but I don't think it's an accurate list because some places where it's listed here that it's a trash receptacle, it isn't.
Right. And some of them, we've had one over here, a couple over here that requests have gone in. One got hit by a snowplow and was destroyed last winter, and the chain is still there. We've asked for it to be returned. I don't know how many times it's been asked for and it's never been returned. And the rest of these around 2nd Avenue, I just took 2nd Avenue. I'm like, really? You think you've got trash receptacles out here? Go by and show them to me.
Right.
This so is not reality.
This list is just inaccurate, period. It's just inaccurate.
Yeah.
The other problem is the emptying, the ones you do have, the emptying of the trash receptacle. Some folks have to call the city to get them empty. Some just run over, like on, I would say, Second over by Judson, in that area. You see trash just roll, just overtaking the trash can.
Yeah.
So those type of things too. So far as the inaccurate, this listing is inaccurate, and as well as the service. How are you emptying these things? Someone told me they go by every morning, but they don't. That's not happening. So I think that is a good thing to look at as well. Yeah, this list goes on, but it's just certainly not accurate at all. So we move down to page 14, because the other pages were just the list of trash receptacles.
Non-existent trash receptacles.
Exactly.
I thought I was confused by that list. I was like, seriously, you have that many? There wouldn't be a piece of litter in the city if those really existed.
Exactly. So now we move down to, let's see here, page, is this 14? The thing is, my computer is acting up. When we look at the capital projects, violence prevention, and community programming, that is page 14. The top says capital projects. Violence prevention task force, and community programming. And at the bottom, it starts off with the mayor's office, community events by ward. And they have a list of these events. I don't know how accurate, I don't know how these events made this list, or what it means. Is this just places where but the mayor attended? Or I really don't know how things made this list. Some things clearly should be on a list where it says like meeting with the mayor and the chief, stuff like that. There's a lot of things on here. So. And some things say, okay, well, they attended a particular meeting. So I don't have any real comments about that. Yeah. So at the bottom of that, page 18, it has the CDBG grants, and it also has a list. When we get to page 19, a list of the recipients, and the list of recipients were also on posted. It was also on TV as well, so I thought that was a good thing. The sub-recipients on this chart here, I think that certainly was a good thing to have. It was made public. It was in the papers, on the website. It's all over, so that's good. It did have a typo for the Black Nurses Coalition, though, and I fixed that. 42 North Swan Street actually is Arbor Hill, but I put Arbor Hill, West End, South End, North Albany, which winds up being citywide. So I will make that correction on here. So when we move to page 20, we have the CARES Act, and we also have the CARES Act funding recipients, and that has also been public as well. So that information has already been out. And that takes us on over to page 21, where we have workforce training and employment, workforce development. Then we have Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act grant. And that's all that's on that page. We have a chart here by zip code. And for the workforce for this grant, It says it's designed to help job seekers access employment, education, training, support services to succeed in the labor market and to match employers with skilled workers they need. 50 city residents receive tuition assistance and supportive services for training between 11/1 and 8/31/2020. The following chart shows individual training accounts for adults and dislocated workers. So it says here, like for 12210, Ward 6, you had 7 people. 12206, you had 8 people. My question about this was, what does this training consist of? And we do this report below for the training account. Is it signing into the account? Is that counted? What is the usage? What is the activity of the training account? And is this platform effective? I know it's a grant. How much is that grant? And is it really effective? Because I know plenty of people can have training accounts. You get like one person, 12211, you have one. 12210, you have the number of individuals training accounts is 7. Okay, you have these accounts, but are they being used? I have plenty of accounts, other places that I don't use. So I think it's important to know whether folks are actually using these accounts. And perhaps they could be served with something different or something better.
Brenda, I have a question on that also.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. When I was thinking about that when I was thinking about like advertisement and like some of the young people, even people in their 20s, they don't have access to like a computer at home or especially now that school is not in, a lot of people may not have access. So how are these things advertised or the outreach to get people to be able to apply for some of this stuff?
Okay, I wrote that down about advertising.
Yeah, what's their outreach like?
And the outreach for this. That's a great point. I got that down.
Yeah, and I know that when the libraries got shut down back in March, a lot of people, young adults and people who use the library for looking up, what do they call it? Monster.com or whatever those job places are, doing resumes, doing even applications online. They had no access to a computer when the libraries got shut down. So that became very difficult for people.
Right. And I do agree. We get a lot of calls too, as I sit on the library board as well, when folks are eagerly waiting for the library to open back up, because it was a hub and it's a big resource that folks don't have at this particular time. When the library is not open, it's certainly felt throughout the city for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
So that was
I know that some of the kids used them as hotspots outside, sitting outside doing stuff, but if you didn't have a computer or something, because I know quite a few people around my own area that use the library computers all the time for job related things or work or school related things, because there's good computer and good access to the internet.
A lot. Yeah, APL does a lot and a lot of great resources, and it certainly felt close. So
I mean, the libraries.
Hopefully soon our wonderful APL will be back in business fully. All right, so we're gonna move to page 22, the Compass Rose Reentry Grant Program. And again, this is a grant. My comments on that is I wanted to know how much this grant was actually for. I wanted to know the effectiveness of it. They do have the number of individuals served, and I looked at 12206. It said 10 individuals served. And I looked at a few other areas to see who was served. And I wanted to see the effectiveness effectiveness of it, because it mentions reentry services concentrate primarily on those individuals who originate from and return into the city of Albany, and it mentions the thing that this program is supposed to do. Well, I would like to see of the individuals that you serve, what about recidivism? What about these individuals as far as arrest of the participants? Has this been an effective program or not? So just giving us a graph or a chart with the number of individuals served, I certainly would like to know the effectiveness of the program, whether it's a grant or not. And then it says the chart below tracks the number of individuals served in the re-entry grant program. Well, knowing a little bit more and gathering more information would be more beneficial. I don't find this chart really to be beneficial. Also, on the bottom of page 22, you have my brother's keepers, and I don't have any comments on that. Does anyone else?
Say that again.
On the bottom, it also has my brothers and sisters keepers. I said I didn't have any comments. Does anybody have any comments on that?
No, it's just a bunch of numbers, but it, like you say, it doesn't tell you anything about the outcomes.
Yeah, we want to know the success, the efforts to impact the lower wards, the high crime neighborhoods. Those are some things that I would like to know in regards to that. We have this program, but you know, what efforts are, and I hear about it occasionally, but what is it doing? So then we also have the 2020 Summer Youth Employment Program. That's on the bottom of 23. We have the graph there. Number youth served. And then when we move to page
56,
page 24, we have the City of Albany employment. It's a map of the City of Albany, and it has a job civil service exam applicants by ward. So it's a pegged chart, so you can just visually see that. When we move to page 25, it's a graph with job exam applicants by ward, and has all the wards listed with the bar graph. Then when we move to 26, we have a map of current city employee addresses by ward. Then we move to page 27. You have another graph of addresses with the city employees by ward again. Then you have the residency of the City of Albany employees. And it has on here outside Albany 539, just 37%. Then you have Albany 920, inside 929, 63%. And looking at that graph, this is one of the things I was mentioning as well. When we see these percentages, I mean, pie charts are great, yippee, whatever. I need to see the data. Just like this says, outside Albany 539, 37%. We need the raw data. Just percentages does not.
Well, that's pretty much your police and fire.
So then at the bottom of 27, it has a job fairs and job communication efforts.
Right, and
then that takes us to page 28.
Again,
and it's
they
still
were all
talking about
posted online, but if you don't have access to online, where else can you find it? Because a lot of people through COVID, with the library shut down, didn't have access to the online jobs portal.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So then we look further. There's a chart here about the events that's taking place, one February, one in March, I guess almost once a month almost. Well, City on the Road, career fairs. Not too many, I'm surprised, on this chart. Then as you move further along on page 28, you have the APD cadet program, which is fairly new. That's for the police department.
Just to clarify about the job fairs, there typically would be more, but because of COVID, they weren't able to have more. We made a note of that in the report.
Yep. And let's see, One of the things that also that I'm gonna add here is a time frame. We need a time frame of the report, because if we get a report in September, we need to see previous. We're not just talking about for March or whatever. So the time frame of our reporting, so we can have a good look at what's going on. So getting back to this page, the APD cadet program is fairly new, and at the bottom of 28, it starts the employee EEO data. So any comments about the APD cadet program?
No.
So now we go to the, anybody else? Valerie, anybody? Aaron, you still with us? Yoo-hoo. Is Aaron still on here?
Yeah, I'm still with you. I just kept you on mute.
Okay, no
I
problem.
mean, I was on mute. Sorry. I'm
No
still
problem.
listening.
No problem.
I'm still with you.
We're just waking
Nope.
you up, Aaron.
No
No,
problem.
Your face.
no,
and
you're fine.
wanted to know if the eyes were open.
All right, so we gotta move on to
Just
the
kidding.
You're fine.
employee EEO data. And it mentions that the city legally requires to do the EO4. You know about the EO4. Some of us have seen that from previous EDs who have shared that report with us and working at other places as well. One thing I can say in regards to some of that reporting, that subsequent charts that we have, I did come up with a few comments, and especially when we start speaking about the EEO, right? And we got the subsequent reports with gender diversity, entire workforce, all those pie charts, quite a few pie charts, I guess, on here. For New York State Division of Human Rights, we by now know that the highest #1 complaint is employment based on race. So I think it's very important to take a good look at that. And especially when we start speaking about equity in employment, certainly is an issue, and hiring stats and things like that are very important. So some things that are of interest to me when I look at this, and some things that I would like to see is, for one, your hiring stats, far as, and I was looking at this, some of this reports just to see whether it actually covers that far specifically, your hiring stats with the racial breakdown, whether it's race, sex, or whatever, the breakdown of that. But also concerning, when I think about some of the complaints that are made and some of the issues as far as employment and race and disabilities and other things, I would like to certainly see upward mobility promotions. I do see that you have the number of folks, far as, it's a chart on here, far as race, right? We have the workforce, and we have these percentages, which again, I'm gonna say for the EO4 is great. All this color coded stuff, wonderful, nice. I wanna see these numbers. The numbers are very important, but also when we see these numbers, and we can say, by race, the percent, then the percent or the number of folks, I see that on page 31, where you have like males 219, females 75, under Black, under, the entire workforce. Well, I want to know the positions here, the leadership positions. I think that's very important to know. So if we can pull out data to know that we have 75 Black females and 219 Black males in the workforce, and you also can pull them by department, which is on page 32, you pull them by department, then you also have the ability to tell me whether they're leadership positions,
Yeah.
or just regular staff positions. This is very
Yeah,
important.
I agree.
When
I
we
agree.
start-
I think
yeah,
that's
when we
I
start-
think that's extremely important here in the city of
Very
Albany to
important.
fund that. They did that
Very
before. They did that a couple of years ago on many of the art institutions here, and they were like patting themselves on the back of how many people of color, how many minorities, but
Right.
they forgot to mention that most of them were in supportive positions and not
Exactly.
high up positions
Exactly.
as well. So I think that's
Exactly.
very key and important to have that information.
Exactly.
So if
So
we can get that, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I
so
think that's
also
very important.
a point of clarification there. I think it was in the first EEO report that I think that I sent out, that this report, the graphs are based off of. I did note that that is information that we're going to be looking to start
Right.
compiling. Just in time for this report, we weren't able to do that because, as you know, this data was only very recently cleaned up. And so,
Right.
and the, positions are not.
We
all the-
understand that, but we're still gonna ask for it.
No, I know, but I just want to
over.
explain, like, it's
No.
not oversight. It's just a matter of,
You've been asking for a long
Yeah.
time, so we look forward to getting that information when you can.
okay.
It'll be joyful when we see that. Again, the upward mobility, the promotions, the raises. I think that's very important to have information when we're looking at equity across the board, especially in light of New York State. We know employment is the biggest complaint, so I think having as much information as possible to really take a good look with an equity lens is very important to all of us. And I also understand cleaning up the EO4 report that Angelica mentioned. Sometimes that can be tedious. So I hear you when you're making that comment as well. But we certainly look forward to that information. And on behalf of CHR, we've been asking about that for years now. So we, again, certainly look forward to that.
Yeah, and on some of these charts, I'd like to see the two on page 31 on a single page each.
Charts
You can't, I
single
can't,
page.
with
Okay.
my aging eyes, read the top one. hardly at
Okay.
all.
So you want to see charts on a single page, and I want to see the actual, some of this stuff.
Well, numbers too, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
even to read this,
Yes,
if it were
I
a
agree.
place that it's bigger, so you can actually see it, and it's got some numbers on it, but I'm not sure
Right.
what they are. So
Right.
if we could do those two, because they're the least clear of any that we've got, especially the one by the racial diversity by department is extremely difficult to read.
Right.
So
Okay.
I would just like to.
I'm putting a clear chart too. Clear chart. It's blurry too. Blurry, one chart per page. Okay. So we got all that down. Okay. Now we're going to move to page 33 under education. And education had just a blurb that section blah, blah, blah requires the city to report on collective actions and policies in the equity field of education. While the city does not control the school district, it does have several initiatives that impact the city of Albany. And later on in this, it had some of the initiatives. But back up here in education, I think when we start looking at equity and we have the education here, I think it's very important to take a closer look at that. We do know, as folks who actually have been living in Albany for a while, we know a few years ago when they had that report about inequity and segregation, racism, whatever, in the city, Albany City School District. So although the city of Albany does not control the school district, we still take a look at that. So the education of Albany greatly impacts our residents, our way of life, our opportunities, and equity. So there is disparity in education. We know that. So certainly that needs to, in some way, be at least mentioned in this report. So what I did was I wanted to look at some of the graduation rates, and I just wanted to add that to this report as well, because it is important whether you control it or not, it is important. The Albany City School District graduation rate reported January 17, 2020. The school district had reported that they had a steady rate of 68% in 2018 and 68% in 2019. And according to New York State ed.gov, 2019 had a total of 704 students, 476 graduated at 68%, which again is steady at the 68% noted in 2018. So both of those areas quoted the same thing. The graduation rate in 2019, though, was 63% for Black or African American, 65% for Hispanic or Latino, and 82% for white. This 2019 report also showed there were 115, 16% students who dropped out, and 71 of those students were Black and 66 were economically disadvantaged. 19 of those students were Hispanic and 10 students were white. So the graduation rate for Black students in 2018 for Black students was 62%. The New York State 2019 average graduation rate was 83% with only a 6% dropout rate. So that says a lot within itself in regards to education. And again, education is important to those who live here in Albany, as well as prospective families who may look to relocate here. So I think it's good for us to at least have that blurb in regards to education. Although we don't control it, it is important. We need to take a look at that and support education here in Albany. Equity education. And then on the bottom of that same page on 33, we have Albany Housing. And they established an annual scholarship. And I did have a question about that. Has anyone received a scholarship? And if so, the demographics or where is the information posted? So I don't know if anybody received anything yet from that. But I also think that's a great thing for Albany Housing. And then we move to page 34, the mayor's event and summer youth employment again. Move to 35. I think that was the last, just that grid on there. And I think that was the end. That report. I'm just strolling through just to make sure we covered everything. Okay, so what I would do, I wrote down the input. I certainly will be adding that, everyone's input into the report, and I will send it out to the commissioners for you guys to review it and for your edits. And we have to call another meeting, and hopefully we have a quorum so that we can vote on the input that we just shared tonight.
Do we still have our 21st, is that October 21st meeting?
Yeah, we do, but if we can get this done before that, if we can get this done before
But I
that.
think we might have a better quorum at our regular meeting to, if we send it out, people should be ready to decide whether to vote on it.
Let's see. Well, today is the 7th. It'll be good. Well, we got to send an email out and see if we can do a sooner meeting than that, because I mean, this was already sent out. My concern is it was already sent out on the 21st. The Common Council already has it. People are already starting to review it. So the sooner we can get our piece to them, the better.
All right.
So if we can get no
The other thing that I would add on to what I said is about, I think we should set dates for the quarterly
Right.
when we want it. So by the time the end of the year comes, when it's due in September, they've already got the data done. And
Right. So I just added dates for quarterly reports.
like the first one, Angelica, how does this work for the year? I mean, if we're looking at a year, we can't start with January. Are we starting this in like October? If this report was due.
Yeah, it should be starting. It should be, that's stuff that, yeah, that's
First.
something that, yeah, it should be starting in October, because that's I mean, I would think, because that's the.
So then the first
Yeah.
report should come the end of December.
So they should be starting on that.
The second quarter should be March 30th. The third in June, and the fourth in September.
So I wrote that down. And with that being said, I just can't say from my own experience so far with the city. I guess they'll determine what their ability is to actually do that.
Yeah.
But
Oh, well,
it doesn't hurt.
just to get it
doesn't
to
hurt
go
us.
by September,
that's
they've
it.
already got all the data done, and we've seen it. Everybody has seen it before then, so it's not such a massive cleanup at that point in time.
So I put the dates for quarterly reports, December, March, June, and September. So we're gonna
Yeah.
add that. And again, I'm gonna send out an email to see if we can meet sooner to get this squared away and get a quorum. I will be adding all these comments into this report, being that this is our commission time.
Yeah.
We'll be adding that so that we can send that out and everybody can look and do whatever they feel they need to
Yeah.
do. We can come together and vote on this to move it forward. Again, this is the first equity report. It's good to set it up how we have good input so we know how we want this going forward. And I think all the input was awesome, because this is the type of stuff that we need to hear. This is the type of stuff that we need to make sure that we get a good look at what's going on, take a good look at the data, give great input, doing our due diligence to help move everything forward.
I won't be able, if you were thinking about a meeting next week, can't be there.
All right, so it won't be next week because you can't be there. So
Yeah, I'm having surgery next week, so I'm.
Oh, you are? So we might have to wait all right, so we might have to wait anyway. So.
If we end up doing the 21st, I might be a little late. I'm going to be facilitating an online workshop, but it's supposed to end right at 5, but you know how those can be. So I
Right.
may be a few minutes late. My workshop is the last one, so I'll be somewhat in control, but folks may have questions and whatnot. So
Okay.
I think starting at 6 is a better time.
Yeah, we will be starting at 6, and next week you said you have a surgery, Julia, so that brings us right back to our regular meeting time anyway. So
Okay.
the 21st or whatever. So okay. So that's where we'll be, the 21st.
We'll get there.
And I'll start putting our stuff together and get that out from the comments and input that you guys gave. I really appreciate you guys showing up for the meeting. Any more comments?
nope, I'm
So
all set. I'm on.
All right.
No, I have no more comments.
All right. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion.
Righty. A second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Bye-bye.
Thank you all.